Welcome to Copy Chief Radio. Today's show is a new breed episode where today's most innovative marketing and copywriting stars share their most effective methods for optimizing results in the fast-changing world of direct response marketing. To check out all the Copy Chief Radio episode types, go to copychief.com/CCR. Hey friends, thanks for being here. It's Kev. Talk email today with Yara Golden. Yara, I've known off and on for years now, and it's been amazing to watch her grow her business as a copywriter and now an agency, and work with very high level marketers like Russell Brunson and others at that level. But she also works with small companies with air quotes, smaller lists, because we all know it's not about the size of your list. It's really what you do with it, as Yara says. So today we're going to talk about who are you for your list, whether you're just growing a list. I coach many freelancers who are just starting to post authority content and have a good lead magnet and starting to grow their list. And of course, we have major companies in Copy Chief as well. And so Yara, again, spends a lot of time, spends every day focusing on helping companies show up right to their list. How often should you be emailing? What's your voice? How do you not get, as she says, put in the friend zone by being a little too friendly? So Yara, it's great to have you here. It's great to see you again. And thanks for doing this.
Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled. Anytime I can talk about copy, at a high level, I'm in.
Yeah, we live here every day, right? It's so
I know,
fun.
It's like marketing, copy, business, growth. Let's go.
I know. I'm not ashamed to geek it out on it. It's like, even when I'm at cocktail parties with people who aren't in business, I'm looking for the one person who has a business. I just want to, compare notes.
It's like home base, right?
Yeah. And so you have an agency now. So you have other writers working with you, with your team. Tell me a little about how the business is set up and that stuff.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. When I first started writing for people, it was just me, right? And so I was at my computer, and all of a sudden I was at my computer all of the time, and I couldn't really do anything other than that. I remember a trip I took to Vegas with my friends, and all the girls were in the dressing rooms trying clothes on. And I was literally sitting on the floor in the store, finishing client emails on my phone. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't do this anymore. And so I started looking for writers, and that's really where I started the agency, right? Because I was like, well, I need to be able to scale this somehow other than just me. Really, we started looking for freelancers because I was like, this is how I started, and I now have more business than I know what to do with. Yet there's all of these other writers who are struggling to make ends meet. Right. And I knew what that felt like. So I was like, well, if I can spread some of this wealth around and maybe kind of teach them what it is that I'm doing and how I'm writing for these people, it'll be a win-win for everyone. And so that's literally how we still have it set up. We don't have any employees. Everyone is a freelancer. They all get to do their own stuff on the side. And we just ask that there's total transparency. If I'm going to give you a project and I have a deadline with it, I would 1,000 times prefer you say, hey, I have a lot on my plate, or I'm not going to be able to hit that deadline, then say yes and have everyone be in a bad situation, and it's thankfully worked out really well.
That is great because, a lot of people, well, it's not a lot of people. It's actually it's a good problem to have. So obviously the sort of common sense thing to do is, so how can it not just be me writing? But that can fall apart really fast for the reason you mentioned, just people not hitting the deadline. Then what? You have to be up all night, either writing it or apologize to the client. So how have you you can't just be getting lucky. You must, how are you choosing people? What have you learned about who to bring in and trust?
Well, I think I find good sources. I found a handful of our writers this last time around that I was looking through Copy Chief, and I'm so grateful. So I think trusted sources, and really just, I think I grew to the point where I could do it myself. And so when I'm interviewing somebody, when I'm looking at their writing, I kind of get a feel for, can I work with this? Or is this totally off base? We've started giving out a trial project. So everyone gets the same interview that I've done, and we ask them to produce, 2 emails and a sales page headline and some social captions and things like that. And so I really look for people who are open to feedback, who are willing to do the work, who understand that deadlines are not suggestions, and who are always growth oriented. I look for people who really have a background in personal development. And so even with just sending a test project out, it's not a paid project. And so there's a handful of people that are like, well, I'm not going to do a test project. And that's great. You're probably not a fit for the agency. And when they do turn in the stuff, it's like, well, there's a deadline to it. We're going to give you feedback. There's a whole process that they go through. And so we've been able to really have some really awesome writers pop out on the other end.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's just a good filtering process in looking for, I know you told me, what's sort of a sweet spot for you is people who are, the way I frame it is they have more talent than experience. They're good and they're disciplined and they just need the opportunity. They need a reason to be writing. Not for free, but if somebody's young and hungry and sees the opportunity to have steady work from a source like you and work with your team, and obviously, like you said, they're getting feedback, they're getting nurturing, they're growing fast, man, that's a win for a freelancer who doesn't have that now. Just think of all the energy it takes to onboard clients, to close deals, the whole marketing and facilitating the project part of your business when you're on the newer end, or sometimes people just burn out from that and they're like, I love the writing part. This other part's killing me, And so, man, if you can plug into an agency like this and just get good, like my friend, like John Carlton says, get good, get connected, get paid. You got to get good first. And working with an agency to me is one of the greatest ways to get good.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the other things we've done for the writers is that when I did my first writer call back 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, hey, if you guys say yes, I'm going to train you one-on-one. And so I thought I was going to get 4 or 5 people, and I got like 25 people raise their hands. And I was like, oh crap, like I just signed myself up for something I don't really have time for. So I went back to them and I said, hey, can I just train you guys as a group? And, we'll all go through this together. So I ended up training them for 6 weeks. I recorded the entire thing. And so now every writer that's ever worked for our agency goes through that same training. I called it the art of story selling, right? Because that's really what I was so focused on at that point. And so they get access to that. They get access to any of my courses. I have a training call every Thursday that I do with my clients and with our writers. Like I'm just constantly pouring into them because the better they get, the better I get. Right? It's like Vidal Sassoon. Like if you don't look good, we don't look good.
That's good. Right. And then did you sign contracts or non-competes or anything like that? You put all this effort into nurturing people. Do you try to keep them in your camp after that, or?
I tried for a while. I was like, oh, we need non-competes and we need all these other things. And at the end of the day, I was like, there's no scarcity around clients or around work or around money or any of those things. And so as of right now, I don't have any, and I feel actually really good about it. I think that we do a good job of finding writers who fit our culture and fit our values. And so it's just not been an issue, knock on wood, right? It's not been an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know. James, my partner, is like, you need contracts like with everyone. And, and I'm like, well, we probably do. It's probably a step that's coming at some point, but for right now, we don't.
Yeah. I like that. I mean, sometimes you just remove friction and let good people behave well.
Exactly.
Everybody's, they're bought in, right?
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Right. And so we've had a couple instances with writers who didn't hit a deadline, and we always have a buffer. So we've yet to miss a deadline for a client. But, lack of communication, not hitting a deadline for us, just really missing the mark with work. And so, we kind of part ways, and it's really not messy at all. There's no hurt feelings. There's no burned bridges. It's just like, hey, we're just not going to give you work anymore. And that's okay. Like, go on with your bad self. Like, just do it over there.
Right. Exactly. All right. So let's talk about email. This is just always one of the most important topics, because obviously, I think we're past the point where we have to remind people email's not going anywhere. It's only growing every year. It's still, to me, the most powerful way to build loyalty, to build an audience, to communicate with your audience, and to sell. The stats will always back that up. With anybody with a strong email regimen, a focused effort, will show you that those numbers, people are giving them their attention first. They will give them their money more easily and happily. There's a relationship there. But there's a lot of ways to screw this up. If you don't own it and you don't think about it, and you're sort of like looking at how other marketers do things, and you don't know is it working for them or not, it's easy to just sort of like cop somebody else's approach. I bet you see a lot of that.
Oh my gosh, I see so much of that. Well, so-and-so did their launch this way, or so-and-so emails this many times a week, or these are the templates that I got. Like I can't with the templates. It's like they're amazing, and templates have their time and their place. Mm-hmm. But I tell people all of the time, like you've got to be a pretty high level, or at least a competent copywriter to take a template and be able to adapt it to your voice, your tone, your product, your audience, right? Like there's a lot that goes into that messaging that people just miss out on. Like it's not Mad Libs, it's not just like fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's how people treat them or want to treat them. And to your point of, are they doing it intentionally? Like, are they communicating with their audience intentionally? I think a lot of people are sending out what I call check the box content, right? It's like, well, I need to email my list. So here's a quote and here's a random thought and here's a template. And then, oh, buy my stuff, like buy my stuff for 3 or 4 days in a row. And as an audience member, right, as a reader, you really kind of start thinking like, what's going on over there? It's almost enough noise in your inbox that you start questioning, like, do I want to be on this list? Like, why am I getting these emails? I don't care about this person. This person clearly doesn't care about me.
Right.
And so I really ask people to, first and foremost, observe their own email behaviors. Mm-hmm. What causes you to want to open somebody's email? What causes you to want to unsubscribe from someone's email? What are the last couple of emails that you've purchased something from or that you've clicked through to the sales page? I think that that's incredibly insightful because your audience is some subset of who you are and their behaviors are going to be similar to yours, right? So I think that's really where I have people start and then really ask themselves, okay, with every single email that I'm sending or every campaign that I'm running, what is my outcome? What do I want people to do? And is the conversation that I'm having leading them only to that point, right? Because we all digress. We digress in conversation. It's very natural for us to do. We chase these rabbits down these little rabbit holes. But in email, it has to be a singular focus. Like this is the point that we're all driving to in a campaign, in an email, in a conversation. And I think that gets lost for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like, don't take the conversational thing too far to where, because it's not real life and it's not a live back and forth. It is still it's a one-way conversation carefully constructed to feel like they're very much a part of it. And you get the opportunity to edit as you go, unlike real life, where sometimes you just halfway through a story, you're like, this is dumb. I wish I could stop talking and relieve everybody of this. You get to actually do that when you're constructing an email campaign. And you've got these great personality sort of types of email and how they show up. And it perfectly equate. It's always about dating. It's always the best analogy. So tell everybody those personality types.
Yeah. Well, I started my entrepreneurial journey as a relationship coach. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I was a relationship coach. And that's actually one of the reasons why I got into copywriting, because I was in these like really high level rooms and I was like, I could help every single person in this room, but no one's buying my thing. Like what's going on? And I realized that nobody wants to admit that they're having an issue in a relationship, right? It's very vulnerable to say something like that. And so I started kind of thinking about marketing and I was learning all of this stuff myself. And I had this epiphany one day and I was like, the same problem that people have in relationship one-on-one is the same problem that they have in relationship one-to-many. It's this inability or unwillingness to be seen for everything we are and everything we're not. And so I was like, well, what if I could help people tell their story through email in a way that helped them feel empowered and actually excited to talk with their audience, right? And felt accepted and all of these things. That's kind of where it started. And I positioned the offer. And so to me, I was like, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm just writing it out this time, right? But as I started thinking about this, I was like, a lot of these marketers are showing up like pickup artists in their inbox. Like, hey, I need something. It's 2 a.m. What are you doing? Right? It's like, what are you up to?
Right. You up?
Right? Like yeah, exactly. I got something that I want from you. So I'm going to reach out. And so they're just looking for that hit, for that hit, for that hit. Yeah. And that's not a great way to show up for your audience. It's very hit it and quit it, right? Like I'm in because I want something. Now I'm gone because I got it. The second type is the player, right? So I call the player the guy who has put a little bit more time and effort into this thing. He's got more finesse. He's a little more suave. He's got some conversation, maybe some sequences and automations going. He's going to try, right? But when he doesn't get what he wants, he's just going to ghost you. And he's going to go find somebody else. And so I think we've all shown up as this person. Like I've been the player, I've been the pickup artist, but we want to make sure that we're in it for the long term. I think that when people subscribe to our list, it's because they are interested in what we have to say or in what we have to offer, but they're just looking for some validation or some proof that we're the right person, that this is the right program, that this is the right thing for them to do. And so when we kind of set these automations and then forget about the people, they just kind of feel abandoned, and they're either going to unsubscribe, or when you come back as the pickup artist, right, to make them an offer, they're just going to be like, I don't want anything to do with you. So those are our two, like, I would say biggest offenders on the offer side. On the other side of like, now you have people who do love to add value and they show up all the time and they give and they give and they give. And I call these Mr. Nice Guy. I usually err on the side of Mr. Nice Guy. Like, I'm like, I just want to give you the world. I want to tell you all of the things, like, go be successful. And hopefully if I give you enough information and show you just how good at my thing I am, you're going to email me back and tell me that you want to pay me.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't work that way. We like friend zone your entire list, which sucks.
It's an expensive lesson. Yeah. It's like, I'd like you say that that's the least offender, because it is the best way you can sort of quote unquote fail is by giving too much value. Like that's a good thing.
Yeah. I think that it's probably the easiest one to kind of bring back, because you're like, hey, you know, I've added all this value. I think it's the value exchange, right? It's just uneven. Like you've given and given and given and given. And most of the time for Mr. Nice Guy, the audience is like, will you just make me an offer? Like, I can't wait to work with you. I want to say yes to your thing. I just don't know how. And so when you actually start making offers in an intentional way to those audiences, they usually come to life like pretty quickly. So those are the three types, right? We have the pickup artist, the player, and Mr. Nice Guy. And so what I tell everyone is that there's nothing wrong with any of them. You're doing the thing, right? Like you've built the audience, you've created content, you're showing up, you have an offer. Like there's a lot of work that goes into getting to any of those levels, right? We're not knocking anyone. Right. But what I think is really helpful is to transition your style to what I like to call like relationship material. Right. And so that's when you're really showing up. Like it's like a marriage, right? Like your partner that you want to be with is somebody who's going to challenge you, who's going to support you, who's going to call you out on some hard truths, who's going to encourage you into becoming the best version of you. And in marketing and business terms, is someone who's going to create opportunities for you to step into working with them. Right. So it's like, you've got to get some skin in the game. There's only so much coaching and teaching and growth that can happen from reading an email, right? Or even reading a series of emails. So it's like, if you're here and you're enjoying and reading this content, you're probably going to want to join this program or buy this product or come to this event, because it's going to get you that much further than just what you're getting here.
Hey, it's Kev here. You and I both know that email marketing is one of the most powerful tools that professional writers have to grow their businesses and, of course, to increase profits quickly for our clients. My good friend Chris Orzechowski is one of the top email copywriting experts in the entire industry, and he's generated hundreds of millions of dollars with his email campaigns. He's built his own 7-figure business, going from part-time copywriting as a high school teacher to now running his own agency, building his own team of elite email copywriters. Chris is the guy when it comes to email that works, that sells. And now I'm very proud to have partnered with Chris to bring all his experience and knowledge to you in our new Email Copy Academy course. Inside this course, you'll learn email marketing 101 and market research, the anatomy of emails that sell, email strategy and campaign design, how to create product launches, and a whole lot more. Chris has personally helped me transform my own email marketing, and his strategies are straightforward, replicable, and reliable. So if you'd like to learn to do the same for your own businesses and, of course, for your clients, then check out the the brand new Email Copy Academy. You can find it at copychief.com/ECA. All right, back to the show. And I love what you said about observing your own habits. You know how that feels. And look, it's funny. It's almost like a dichotomy here where you have to observe that behavior. But one thing, it's easy to get skittish about attention spans when you watch that behavior. Because I know I've gotten on lists with every intention of reading, even though I think sometimes it's just easy to unsubscribe because they're doing nothing but pitching the hell out of it. And you're like, all right, there's no relationship here. Other times you're just not making time. And so it's easy to think about, oh, I better keep everything short and to the point, and I better be a little more blunt because nobody has time to read. No, we always make time to read something interesting, something that we feel a connection with, and something that we feel like we're going to get out of. If you write emails, at least inject it in there somewhere. It shouldn't be like pitch, long story. Just again, like a balance, an intention of balancing that and treating them like you would a friend or a family member. Sometimes you're sending out quick little alerts and reminders, right? And sometimes you're having long, deep conversations. But at the end of the day, it's like, why am I telling the story? What should they take from it? Where do I want them to be led? And sometimes it's just to relate and to say, I get it. Like I've been there too. And there doesn't have to be a call to action at the end or whatever. It's a living, breathing relationship.
Yeah. One of the things that I come up against a lot with entrepreneurs that we work with is because we're always saying, tell us the story of how you started your company, why you do the thing that you do. Like, you can do anything you want. Why do you wake up every single day and do this? Yeah. And they're like, well, but I don't want this to be just about me. Like, I don't want this to be all of my stories and that's it. And I have to remind people all the time that we don't tell our stories because it makes us feel good, right? Most of the time we're going back to a time in our lives when things weren't peachy keen, right? Like it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. And I remind people that we tell our stories in service of our reader. There's a point that you're driving to. There's a lesson that you want to impart to them. There's an aha that you had that you're saying, hey, take my experience. Like, here's the shortcut. Here's the sand trap. Like there's a saber-toothed tiger behind that bush, like take my learning and apply it in your life. And I think that when, as business owners or as influencers or as, thought leaders, we are able to share that perspective with people, our life's perspective, that's where the relationship is built. And that's where the value is found. It's not like, hey, here's my latest widget, go download it because it's going to be super helpful for you. It's like, this is the lesson that led me to create this thing. And that's where you're going to find the value in it.
I love that. Yeah, that's sort of the other side of the dichotomy is that you have to write to the person who's going to read it. You can't write it for the person who's probably not going to read it or nobody will read it, right? You have to write it to and imagine that the person's glued to the page and they're giving you their attention. So what are you going to do with that? And so that's the thing is like, watch your own behaviors, but notice it's the people who tell you stories, who let you into their hearts, their minds, their awakenings and those things. Not to sound too woo about it, but that's what it is, right? You see this on Facebook. Facebook's a good parallel in some ways to, I think, an approach to email in that the longer content for me always gets way more likes, reads, shares. And I just did a thing where I did it actually wrote it for email, but I released it ahead of time on Facebook just because I felt like it. I was curious how people would respond. And it was a 2-part series called The Night I Quit Comedy. I did stand up for 10 years and it was basically the night where I knew it was over. I mean, it was so cool. Like I heard from people I haven't heard from and people you'd think, oh, I didn't know we were even friends on Facebook, let alone you're reading my stuff, but they hadn't responded for a year. And suddenly this, and long responses like you get with email. I always say the best judge of how good an email did, sure, you got to watch your stats, but it's the replies. If somebody's compelled to sit there and click reply and write back to you, that's the relationship.
It's amazing. Like I found, so the way that my entrepreneurial journey started at all was that I was going through a divorce and I was in Vegas, and I was in my apartment with my kids alone for the first time. And there was all these rumors about, what had happened. And I was in a pretty tight knit little suburbia land. And there was really no bad guy. Like, we had both screwed up. A lot of things had gone on. And we just mutually decided that separating was the best option for us. And so I didn't want there to be all these versions of the truth out there, like I thought anyone would do, which I've come to find out is not true. I took to Facebook and I was like, you guys want to hear what happened? Like, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to control the narrative, because I had my own spin on things, like my version of the truth, my perspective. And I just started writing and writing and writing, like how we were getting along so well, why we were both in new relationships, how the kids were doing, just what books I was reading, what I was learning, how I felt, like all of these things. And I found that the more my hand shook before I hit post, and eventually an email before I hit send, the more it resonated with people. And my coaching business actually started because I got so many new followers that people started messaging me and saying, hey, I'm in a similar situation. Can we talk? What books are you reading? I'd love to pick your brain. And all of these things started happening to the point where I was like, I think I could probably charge people to do this. Right. And James was like, you should just be a relationship coach. And I was like, are you crazy? Do you not see the disaster that I just created in my life? And he says, yeah, but people are reaching out because they're watching you navigate it in a way that resonates with them. And so, just to say, it's like vulnerability and authenticity are like really big buzzwords right now. But I think that there's a lot of forced vulnerability and manufactured authenticity, and that doesn't hit the same, right? When you show up and you say, hey, like, this is a story of the night that I quit stand-up, people are immediately drawn in. Like, I'm sitting here going, like, I'm going to go back on Kevin's timeline and find out what happened. That's a powerful piece of content. It's a powerful admission, and people are looking for things like that they can connect with.
I think that's where it really shows. No, I feel like I'm humble bragging or patting myself on the back here, but the reason I think it was effective is because I did say, I know there's a lesson in here and I'll figure it out as I write this. Sometimes you just got to start writing and telling the story. But if you have a very sort of like, we talk about empathy as a really key thing to being a good copywriter. And if you have that empathy gene, you're going to find the lesson in a way to, again, not make it a major thing and pound people over the head with it, but put it in there. And then suddenly you have sort of the full package of why you did it. And that's what I think we want people to take away. What you're saying is, you tell your clients this, you're sharing in service to your audience. I love that line. I think I'm going to name the episode that, in service to our reader. That is great. I mean, that is really what it is. And because, people get so caught up in this idea that, you to I, the you to I rule in writing. You have to say you 10 times more than you say I. It's not true. If you tell the story correctly, they will only be thinking of I, but through the lens of your experience.
Yeah. It's funny you say the you to I, because I do my best in every email to start with I, transition to we, and end with you. Right. So it's like, I did this thing. We all know, right? Like I give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm always speaking to the highest and best version of my reader. And so I'm like, we know these things already. And so you may be seeing this in your life, right? So it's a transition kind of like that, where it's like, this is my story, but this is how it's universally applicable. And this is how it may be showing up for you. Here's what you could do about it, right?
Let's talk quickly about this great new tool you have, the
List Assist.
List Assist. I knew it was a really catchy. So cool. And so this is a result. I just downloaded it for the call, so I haven't had a chance to really dig in, but talk about a great giveaway. You're just teaching people how to think about a way, first of all, finding who they want to be, how they want to show up, but then how to actually do it and plan that. Like you said, templates are great. They don't make the magic. No magic. You cannot Mad Lib any feeling from your audience. This is a way to answer all the questions about how often do I email? When do I send what? What's my intention behind each email? Yeah. Yeah.
So List Assist, there's a funny story to how it came about. So I, for the longest time, my whole life really have absolutely hated spreadsheets, anything to do with spreadsheets. And so I was like sticky notes, notebooks, like anything but. And my team has really just been super patient with me and got me to the point where it's like, okay, like here's a spreadsheet. We need you to fill in these things. So I started playing with it and I created List Assist, which is actually a very visually appealing spreadsheet. So we've got a whole calendar, we've got an asset list, and then we break everything down in campaigns. And so for those of you listening who are like, I hate spreadsheets too, like, please just like take a look at it because it's super user friendly, or I wouldn't be using it. Yeah. But the way that List Assist works is that first we have you look at the calendar view and just do a brain dump of like, when would you like to talk to your people, right? Like put down the date of your launch and then work backwards from there. How many times do you want to commit to emailing them a week, a month, a day? Just plot it out, right? Then you can move over to the campaign view and we have a little box for each individual email that you're going to send out. So you can say, hey, this is the date that we want to send it out. And then you can attach a file, a voice note, just write a little note about what you actually want that email to be. And so what that has done, at least for us in the agency, is that as I'm interviewing somebody, I plot out all of their emails and then I get from them just this brain dump of like, this is what I want these emails to say. And it's like, sweet, it took us 10 minutes to do something that would have otherwise taken an entire team, an entire week to get done, right? And then in the asset view, it's really just a place where we can say, okay, how many sales pages are we going to need? How many video scripts are we going to need? How many email campaigns are we going to need? Is there any like social posts and things like that? So all of the documents get linked there and they just live there. So the whole project is really housed through List Assist. And you can see, was this written? Has this been approved? Has it been scheduled out to go? Like what's happening with all of it? It's really, really cool. And from a copywriting perspective, it's awesome when you can fill something like this out with your clients, because then you can be like, hey, well, let's do a strategy session. Like these are all the things that you just said you needed. Would you like help with that, or you got it? Right. And then they're a little bit overwhelmed because they're like, well, now I see that I need 2 sales pages and 24 emails and, 16 social captions. What would it look like for you to do that for us? And I'm like, well, I'm really glad that you asked, because that's the service that we offer.
That's the good news. I can actually help. Yeah.
Exactly.
This is fantastic. I'm looking at it now. It is very, very user-friendly. Everything you just said about spreadsheets is so true. It's more like a checklist than a spreadsheet with weird, numbered columns or anything, right? It's
no, everyone's like, don't call it a spreadsheet. And I'm like, I know, but I have to tell them that it's a spreadsheet so they're not scared of it.
Because that's how it's going to open, right? They have to make a copy and then it's theirs. This is really helpful. I mean, I love, talk about eating your own cooking. Like this is a real gift for people. Everybody needs to go download this. And if you ever wonder, and especially if you're a copywriter, if you provide email for clients and you're not working with Yara already, this is a real gift for you. It's like we talked about. This shows your giving spirit, Yara. Like, because this is almost like something you wouldn't want to give your competition. Some people wouldn't. This is really the game plan for how to email for a client.
Yeah, it's really cool. It really streamlined everything in the agency for us, because as you can imagine, we've got upwards of like 10 different projects going at any given moment. And, some of them are launches, some of them are warm-up sequences, some of them are entire funnels. And I was just like hitting my head against the wall going, how do we not drop the ball? Like, how do we not forget, the social captions or the thank you page or something? And when I kind of sat out and mapped this out, I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is something that is really helpful, not only for entrepreneurs, but for freelancers, for agencies, for everyone. And I'm like, I did have the thought, I was like, well, do I really give this away to people? And I'm like, there's no scarcity. Like, I just want to help people be successful at the thing that they want to do. And if this helps anyone, then that's freaking awesome. Like, I feel like I'm doing my job, right?
Yeah. Whenever I have that thought about, is this too much to give away? I go, what do I want to die with it?
Exactly.
Is that the best outcome? I die with it on my hard drive. Like, let people use it, man.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. All right. Yara, this was great. And I know that you're not constantly hiring, but there is sort of, is there an open application process to freelancers who would want to work with an agency like yours?
Yeah, there absolutely is. You can actually find the application at yaragolden.com, and it's Yara, Yara, golden like the color.com. We're always reviewing applications. It really, for us, depends on the thing that we need help with, right? Sometimes we need somebody whose Facebook ad, that's their jam. Sometimes we need email. Sometimes we need sales pages. And so I always tell writers, when we say no, I'm like, it's not you. It's not that you're not good enough. It's just that we may not need your specific skill set at this moment. And so I'm like, just keep trying, Yeah,
I love it. Yeah. So definitely go there, yaragolden.com, like you said, YARA golden.com, and find the application, reach out. And you said there'll be a writing test. And if you're opposed to that, if you're just like, I don't write for free, then don't. It's okay.
Yeah.
No hard feelings. But if you see an opportunity, like I said, to remove the friction of finding clients and you just want to do the writing part, get good first. It's your portfolio you're building, you're writing with purpose. You're hopefully getting to see the results of the work you did in best case scenarios. And not only that, but get nurturing and coaching from Yara. So very cool.
And you don't have to do the TikTok ads.
I don't have to point at things on the screen as they.
I'll do the pointing and the weird dancing. You guys do writing. It'll be great.
That is a gift. That's another gift. You are a giver. So good. All right, Yara. I'll see you next week at the mastermind, and looking forward to it. You and James, and we'll do this again soon. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. Copychief.com/CCR.